They played a prank by sending the maid to the blind date, but the prince's son said marry her. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The bell in the servants' corridor had a particular ring when it came from the upper apartments, short, sharp, impatient. Martha Weiss heard it while she was scrubbing the stone floor and felt her shoulders tense. "Someone from the family," whispered one of the kitchen maids. "Go on, Martha, you're closest. Do not keep them waiting." Martha dried her hands quickly on her apron and hurried up the back stairs, her heart beating faster than the sound of her footsteps. She was used to running errands, but the summons at this hour with that tone felt different. At the top of the stairs, the housekeeper, Frau Adler, stood like a wall. Beside her were two ladies wrapped in fine shawls, their gloved hands resting lightly on the banister. Martha recognized them only vaguely as frequent guests of the prince's relatives. Their eyes slid over her plain dress and work-rough hands. "There," said one of the ladies, her voice light. "That one, she will do." Martha stopped short and curtsied. "You sent for me, Frau Adler?" The housekeeper's expression was tight, as if she had bitten something sour. "Yes." "Martha, you are to assist these ladies with a special errand for His Highness." Martha blinked. "For the prince?" "One does not repeat the question," the older lady said sharply, though there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. "You will do as you are told. Have you a better dress?" Martha felt her cheeks warm. "Only my Sunday dress, my lady." "It is simple. That will suffice," the other lady said. "We require modesty, not splendor. Go and put it on." "We have little time." Martha looked from them to Frau Adler. "May I ask what I am to do?" "No," Frau Adler cut in. "You will do as requested. Wear your Sunday dress, comb your hair, and wash properly. Hands, face. They need you to look presentable." Presentable. The word felt strange in her direction. Martha curtsied again, murmured a yes, and slipped back down the stairs, her mind racing. An errand for the prince? Why her? There were maids more experienced, maids with smoother hands and smoother words. In the tiny room she shared with another girl, she opened the trunk at the foot of her narrow bed and carefully lifted out her Sunday dress. It was plain grey, with a high collar and worn cuffs, but it was clean and whole. She changed quickly, fingers fumbling on the buttons. She tried to smooth her hair into a neat knot, wishing for a mirror larger than the little piece of glass hanging by a string. Her roommate peeked in and gasped. "Are you going upstairs like that? What have you done?" "Nothing," Martha said. "They said an errand for His Highness." The other girl's eyes widened. "For the prince? Truly? Martha, what did you break?" "Nothing," Martha repeated, though doubt crept in. "At least I think I broke nothing." She went back up. The two ladies surveyed her as if she were a piece of furniture. "Gloves," one of them said. "She needs gloves." Frau Adler produced a pair from somewhere. They were too large and a little frayed, but to Martha they looked grand. She slipped them on, feeling her fingers swim inside. "Listen carefully," the older lady said. "You are to go with us to the city. We will take you to a restaurant. You will sit and behave yourself politely. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will remember that you are representing the household." Martha swallowed. "Why me, my lady? I do not understand." The lady's lips curved in a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Because you were chosen. Is that not enough?" They did not give her time to ask more. She was guided through side doors and down to a waiting carriage, where the coat of arms of Altenburg shone on the panel. Martha hesitated on the threshold. "I should not," she whispered. "I am only a maid." "Today," the younger lady said. "You are doing a service. Get in." Martha climbed into the carriage. The city road was bumpy, and with each turn, her anxiety grew. She pressed her gloved hands together, trying to guess what task awaited her. Her stomach twisted with each word she dared to imagine. Serving, delivering, apologizing on someone's behalf. "Do I say, 'Your Highness'? If I see the prince?" she asked softly. The ladies exchanged a quick glance. "If you see him," one said, "you will curtsy and be silent. Leave the speaking to those who know how." They reached the city, and the carriage slowed. Outside, the streets were busy with people, but Martha barely saw them. They stopped in front of a restaurant with tall windows. Through the glass, She saw white tablecloths and flickering lamps. Her breath caught. She had never entered such a place. The older lady touched her arm. "Walk in. A table is reserved. A gentleman waits. You will go to him and sit down when he indicates. Do not tremble so. You look as if you are being sent to execution." "A gentleman," Marta repeated faintly. "Yes, a gentleman." The lady's smile sharpened. "Remember what I said. Behave politely. Watch what he does and imitate. That is all." They helped her down from the carriage and then, to her surprise, remained outside. "You are not coming with me?" Marta asked. "No," the younger lady said. "It would ruin the effect. Go along. He is expecting someone." The door opened under the hand of a doorman in a dark coat. Marta stepped inside, her heart hammering. The room smelled of coffee and roasted meat, but she noticed only the many eyes that lifted to her. Ladies in fine dresses, gentlemen in tailored coats. She wished she could turn and flee, but the carriage behind her was already pulling away. "Can I help you, Fräulein?" a waiter asked, his tone polite but puzzled. "There is a reservation," she managed. "For His Highness." The waiter's eyes flickered to her dress, then to the doorway, as if he expected a grand lady to appear behind her. When none did, he hesitated, then nodded. "This way." At a table near the window sat a man with dark hair, his posture straight, his eyes on the street beyond the glass. Beside him, on a chair raised by a cushion, sat a small boy swinging his legs. The man's coat was severe and well made. His face was not young, not old, but marked by something that looked like permanent restraint. "Your Highness," the waiter murmured, bending slightly, "your guest has arrived." The man turned his head. His gaze met Marta's, and for a moment time stopped. "This cannot be for me," she thought. "They have made a mistake." His eyes swept over her simple dress, her uncertain stance, the gloves that did not fit. For an instant, something like confusion crossed his face. Then his expression cooled, becoming distant and controlled. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice even. "Fräulein." Marta curtsied so fast she almost lost her balance. "Your Highness, forgive me. They said I was to come." He did not invite her to sit. He did not smile. His gaze flicked past her, perhaps searching for another figure, another woman in silk, and behind her, in the far corner of the restaurant, a group of familiar noblemen had gathered at two tables pushed together. Their laughter, soft and contained, rose and fell like the hum of bees. Marta felt their eyes on her back. She realized, slowly, horribly, what this was. They had sent her in place of someone else. Someone who was meant to meet the prince. Someone of their world, not a servant. Her throat closed. "Your Highness, I think there has been some misunderstanding. I should not be here." The man's jaw tightened. "Indeed," he said quietly, "there has." He stood, pressing his palms briefly on the table, as if to steady himself. The boy beside him looked from his father to Marta, with clear blue eyes. "Papa." "Who is she?" the child asked. The prince did not answer at once. His gaze lifted past Marta, toward the far corner where the nobles sat. One of them quickly looked down at his glass, failing to hide a smirk. Johann von Altenburg, Marta realized. She had seen him before, only from a distance, on days when he passed through the courtyard, always with a careful distance between himself and the world. Now he was 3 steps away, and his displeasure was like a cold wind. He turned back to her. "Fräulein, may I ask your name?" "Marta. Marta Weiss, Your Highness." "And your position at the castle?" I am a maid, Your Highness, in the lower staff." His eyes narrowed. "Of course you are," he murmured, more to himself than to her. The waiter hovered nearby, unsure whether to withdraw or offer a chair. The restaurant's conversations had softened. People were watching. "I will have a word with those who sent you," Johann said. "You may return to the castle. This has gone far enough." He reached for his son's coat, clearly intending to end this absurd scene. Marta's cheeks burned. She wished the floor would open under her. Humiliation pressed against her chest so hard she could barely breathe. "I am sorry, Your Highness," she whispered. "I did not know. They only told me to come. I would never—" "I know," he interrupted, not unkindly, but with a tightness that made her flinch. "This is not on you, Fräulein Weiss." The boy had been watching Marta with a kind of quiet intensity. He slid down from his chair and walked around the table, his boots soft on the floor. Marta stepped back instinctively, but he kept coming until he was right in front of her. Up close, she saw his hair, fair and slightly unruly, and his small, serious face. He raised his hand and took hers, clumsy fingers closing around her gloved ones. Marta froze. "Little sir," she murmured. "You should not—" He looked up at her, then turned his face to his father. His voice was clear, ringing in the near silence. "Father," he said, "marry her." The words sliced through the room like a blade made of light. At the far tables, someone choked on a laugh and turned it into a cough. A lady's fan snapped shut. The waiter's jaw dropped a little before he caught himself. Johann stared at his son, speechless. Color rose in his cheeks, not from embarrassment alone, but from something rawer, deeper. He looked at Marta, at their joined hands, at the boy's small fingers curled around hers, as if he had been holding that hand for years. "Lucas," Johann said, his voice low, "you cannot say such things." "Why?" the boy asked, perfectly calm. "I like her. She feels quiet." He frowned, searching for words, like when the snow falls and the sounds go away. Marta's eyes stung. She wanted to pull her hand back, to vanish, but Lucas's grip was firm. "Fräulein Weiss," Johann said, "you may release him." "I am trying, Your Highness," she whispered, her voice shaking. The nobles in the corner were leaning forward, the amusement on their faces now edged with something sharper. This had gone beyond a simple joke. They had expected discomfort, perhaps a stormy exit, but not this. Johann drew a breath and straightened. His anger, which had been a private flame, began to show in the tightness of his shoulders. "Gentlemen," he called, his voice suddenly carrying across the room. Every head turned. "I trust you are enjoying your afternoon," he said. "You have arranged quite the entertainment." One of the nobles, a baron with a red face, stood with a weak smile. "Your Highness, we merely wished to—" "To what?" Johann asked. "To send a servant girl to take the place of a lady who did not wish to meet me. To see how far your little prank would go?" Marta closed her eyes briefly. The word prank confirmed it. She was not imagining. The baron spread his hands slightly. "It was meant in jest. No insult to you, Your Highness. We thought—" "Some levity, Johann repeated. "At whose expense? Mine? Hers?" He looked down at Lucas, still holding Marta's hand. "My son's?" Silence. The owner of the restaurant lurked behind the counter, unsure whether this was the moment to disappear entirely. The other patrons pretended to study their plates and glasses, but their ears were very focused. Johann exhaled slowly and looked at Marta. His voice changed, growing formal, deliberate. "Fräulein Weiss," he said, "would you honor my son and me by joining us for our meal?" She stared at him. "Your Highness, I cannot. I do not belong here." "You are already here," he replied, "and you have been dragged into this without your consent. The least I can offer you is a seat and something warm to eat." "But the lady who was meant to come—" Marta's voice faded. He had already shown he knew exactly what had been supposed to happen. Johann looked again toward the nobles. "It seems the lady has made her opinion clear by her absence. I see no reason to spare her feelings when she has already spared none of mine." He pulled out a chair, not the one opposite him, but the one beside Lucas. "Please," he said simply. Marta thought her legs would not hold her. She moved slowly, as if walking in water, and sat. Lucas climbed back onto his chair and kept her hand in his, resting it on his knee as if afraid someone might take her away. The waiter stepped forward, voice shaky. "Your Highness, shall I bring—" "Another setting," Johann said, "and whatever the kitchen recommends today. For 3. "Yes, Your Highness, at once." The murmur of conversation gradually returned, though never fully. Marta felt every whisper like a breeze on her skin. She kept her gaze on the napkin in front of her, terrified she might somehow lift it wrong. "Fräulein Weiss," Johann said more gently, "do you live in the servants' quarters?" "Yes, Your Highness." "How long have you been at Altenburg?" 3 years, Your Highness." "And before that?" "A farm outside the city. My parents still live there." He nodded. "You have never been to a place like this, have you?" "No, Your Highness, I'm sorry if I do something wrong. If anyone does something wrong today, it will not be you," he said quietly. The nobles in the corner shifted, hearing but pretending they had not. The food arrived, a modest roast, bread, vegetables. Marta watched the way Johann held his knife and fork, copying him carefully. Lucas ate with the blunt eagerness of a child watched too closely. From time to time he glanced up at Marta, as if checking she was still there. "Do you remember me?" he asked suddenly. Marta stiffened. "Little sir." "From before," he said. "From the castle, from when I was smaller." "I do not think so," she said quickly. "You were always in the upper rooms, I was never there." Lucas tilted his head. "But your voice," he murmured. "It feels like when I was very little and someone sang." Johann's fork paused midway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. "Sang," he repeated, his tone blank. "Yes," Lucas said, "when Mother was tired. Someone sang." Marta's stomach twisted. Old memories, half buried, stirred at the edge of her mind. She swallowed hard and reached for her water. "I am certain you are mistaken, little sir," she said. "Many people in the castle sing." "Not like you," he replied. But he let it go and bent over his plate again. Johann watched Marta for a moment longer, then resumed eating, though his appetite had waned. The rest of the meal passed in fragmented conversation, mostly practical questions and answers. What were her duties? How long had she been assigned to the laundry? Did she read? Marta responded quietly, surprised when he did not mock her simple schooling. When they finished, Johann signaled for the bill, but the restaurant owner hurried over, insisting there was no charge, murmuring something about honor. Johann did not argue. He helped Lucas into his coat and went around the table to Marta. "Your Highness," she said, rising clumsily, "thank you. I do not know why you were so—" "You have nothing to thank me for," he interrupted. "Today you have had to endure far more than you deserved. It will not be repeated." They stepped outside. The air was cooler, the sky a pale afternoon color over the roofs. The nobleman who had helped deliver her earlier was nowhere to be seen. Their carriage, however, waited near the curb. "Come," Johann said. "We shall take you back to the castle." "Oh no, Your Highness," Marta protested. "I can walk, it is not far, you should not—" "I insist," he said. "It is not appropriate for you to walk alone after this display. And besides," he added, glancing at Lucas, "I believe my son will be inconsolable if we part from you here." "I will go with her," Lucas said immediately, as if the idea of separation had not occurred to him. "You are going home either way," Johann said dryly. "Into the carriage, Lucas." The boy obeyed, climbing in with the confidence of one who had never doubted his place in the world. Marta hesitated one more heartbeat, then followed. Johann sat opposite them, one hand resting on his knee, the other on the window frame. The carriage rolled away from the restaurant. The city slid past. Inside, the space seemed too small for all the things left unsaid. "I am truly sorry, Your Highness," Marta said again. "If I had known it was such a meeting, I would never have—" "It was never meant for you," he said. "You were used. I will speak with those responsible." "Please do not let them know I spoke of them," she blurted. "I cannot afford to lose my place." His gaze softened. "You worry about your job after the way they made you stand in front of a room full of people?" he asked. "Yes," she said simply. "A maid without a place is nothing." "You are not nothing," he said, almost sharply. Then he looked away as if annoyed with himself. "Tell me, Fräulein Weiss, did you truly not know who you were meant to meet?" "No, Your Highness. They said only that I was to behave and represent the house. I thought perhaps they needed someone to deliver something or apologize on someone's behalf. I thought perhaps I was being punished, but I did not know for what." His mouth twisted slightly. "You were not being punished. They were amusing themselves. It seems grief is not interesting enough for some people. They need scenes." He pressed his lips together, the word grief hanging between them unspoken and yet defining everything. Marta lowered her eyes. She had heard the stories, the whispers about Princess Helena, about the illness, about how the prince had withdrawn from social life since her death. She had never imagined she would be dragged into the center of that wounded circle. "Your son," she said quietly. "He seems lonely." Johann looked up. "He has lost his mother," he said. "Of course he is lonely." The carriage fell silent after that. The castle soon rose ahead, its stone walls familiar and suddenly intimidating. When they stopped in the courtyard, Johann stepped down and helped Lucas out, then offered his hand to Marta. "Thank you again, Your Highness," she said, stepping carefully onto the cobblestones. "Go to your work, Fräulein Weiss," he said, his voice formal once more. "And try to forget today as much as you can. I will ensure there are no consequences for you." She curtsied, not daring to meet his eyes, and hurried through the servants' entrance. As the door closed behind her, the noise of the courtyard dulled. She pressed her back against the wall and finally let out the breath she had been holding. Her knees shook. In the servants' hall, heads turned. Conversations paused. News travelled faster than any carriage. "She went in a carriage with the prince," someone whispered. "She sat with him in a restaurant, they say. And the boy said he wanted the prince to marry her," another added with a snicker. "Imagine, our Marta, a princess. What did you do to him, Marta?" She shook her head, unable to answer. She escaped to the laundry room and sank onto a bench, burying her face in her hands. The words rang in her ears. "Father, marry her." She felt the heat in her cheeks again, the crushing weight of laughter behind her back. By evening the story had grown longer legs than truth. Some said she had flirted shamelessly, others said she had sat there mute as a rock while the prince tried to make conversation. A few kinder souls said nothing at all. Marta climbed the stairs to her little room, her limbs heavy. Her roommate bombarded her with questions, but Marta could barely respond. "I will be dismissed," she whispered at last, staring at her folded apron on the chair. "Tomorrow or the next day, they will say I embarrassed the house. Perhaps they will say I tricked him." Her roommate bit her lip. "Perhaps he will defend you," she offered weakly. "Princes do not waste words on maids," Marta said, "not except to tell them to go." She sat on the edge of her bed and watched the light fade from the small window. Every creak of the corridor made her jump. When the supper bell rang, she did not go down. She had no appetite, only a growing nausea and a tightness in her throat. Night settled. Her roommate fell asleep, breathing steadily. Marta lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of the castle. Somewhere above, in rooms she would never enter, the prince and his son were ending their day. She wondered if Lucas still remembered her face, or if a child's attention had already flown elsewhere. At some point, exhaustion dragged at her and her eyes drifted shut. She slept lightly, full of broken images, the restaurant's lamps, the noble's smiles, Lucas's small hand in hers. A knock at the door jerked her awake. She sat up, heart racing. The light was dim. Dawn had not yet fully broken. Her roommate stirred and mumbled, rolling over. The knock came again, more insistent. Marta swung her legs out of bed and opened the door with trembling fingers. The chief steward stood there, his posture stiff, his face unreadable in the shadowed corridor. "Fräulein Weiss," he said, his voice low and formal, "His Highness has requested that you present yourself in the prince's private study tomorrow morning." Marta hardly slept after the steward's visit. She sat on the edge of her bed with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her roommate finally woke, rubbed her eyes, and stared. "What did he want?" the girl whispered. Marta swallowed. "He said, 'The prince wishes to see me in his private study this morning.'" Her roommate sat up at once. "His private study? Why? I do not know." Marta managed a strained smile. "Perhaps to ask why I dared breathe in his presence yesterday." "That is not funny," the girl said, though a nervous giggle escaped. "What will you wear?" "The same as always," Marta murmured. "He is not asking for a ball." Still, when she dressed, she chose her plain but unpatched dress and tied her hair as neatly as she could. Her hands shook so much she had to redo the knot twice. In the servants' hall, whispers chased her like shadows. "Going to see His Highness," someone murmured. "She is done." "They say he was furious yesterday," another voice chimed. "Not at her, perhaps, but fury needs a place to fall." "Maybe he will be merciful," an older scullery maid said quietly. "The boy seemed fond of her." "Children forget quickly," someone else replied. Marta forced herself to swallow a few sips of weak coffee, then set the cup down. "I must go," she said, though no one had asked. The corridor to the upper floors felt unfamiliar, even though she had cleaned it many times. Light from tall windows painted pale lines on the floor. Her steps sounded too loud. Outside the prince's study, the steward waited. He knocked once, then opened the door and gestured her in. Johann stood by the window instead of behind his desk. Morning light touched his profile. Papers lay in neat stacks on the table, a contrast to the tension in his shoulders. On the carpet, Lucas sat with a wooden horse in hand, tracing circles. When the door closed behind her, Marta curtsied so low her head nearly touched the floor. "Your Highness," she whispered, "you sent for me." "Yes," Johann said. "Come closer, Fräulein Weiss." Her legs felt like wood, but she obeyed. She kept her gaze fixed on the carpet. "Look up," he said more gently. She did. His eyes were steady, not as cold as she had feared, yet guarded. "Do you know why you are here?" he asked. "I assume," she said, her voice rough, "that I am to be dismissed, Your Highness. I would only ask if I might receive a small paper to show future employers that I was not dismissed for theft, or something worse." Lucas's head jerked up. "Dismissed?" he exclaimed. "No." Johann's gaze flicked to his son, then back to Marta. "Who told you that you would be dismissed?" "No one," she admitted. "It is only reasonable." "Is it?" His eyebrow lifted. "Because my relatives made a spectacle of you, I should now punish you as well?" She hesitated. "You are the prince, Your Highness. People expect someone to carry the blame when there is talk. Do you feel you are to blame?" he asked. "Yes," she said without thinking. "Someone should have known better. I should have known better." Johann shook his head slightly. "Tell me again from the beginning. Who told you to go to the restaurant? Use their names." She swallowed. Her eyes darted toward the closed door, as if those ladies might materialize out of the wood. "Frau Adler summoned me," she said. "Two ladies were with her, Lady Charlotte von Breiner and Lady Elise von Kardel, I think. They told me I was to assist with an errand, to represent the house. They did not say it was a meeting. They did not say—" Her voice faded. "They did not say that you were to stand in for a noblewoman," Johann finished. "No, Your Highness." He walked to his desk, picked up a paper, then set it down again without reading it. "Did you agree willingly?" "I tried to refuse," she said softly. "I said I was only a maid. They insisted. I did not dare disobey." Lucas had come closer without her noticing. He now tugged at her skirt. "You did nothing wrong," he said. "I wanted you to stay. I said so." "Hush," Johann murmured, though there was no real reprimand in it. Marta dared a glance at the boy. "I am grateful for your kindness, young master," she said, "but I do not wish to cause trouble for you or your father." "Too late," Johann said dryly. "The trouble was caused long before we reached the restaurant." He leaned back against the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "The gentleman who arranged yesterday's amusement," he said, "seem to believe that my life is their theatre. They forget I am not obliged to applaud." Marta did not know what to say. "So," Johann continued, "you were ordered, not asked. You had no idea what awaited you, and yet you now stand here ready to accept dismissal so that others may feel their joke has no consequences." "If my leaving can calm things," she began. "No," he said, firmness cutting through her words. "I will not make you the scapegoat for their cruelty." She stared at him. "Then why am I here, Your Highness?" "To decide what comes next," he replied. "For you and for my son." Lucas, as if summoned by the mention of his name, stepped closer and slipped his hand into Marta's again. It seemed to be becoming a habit. Johann watched the gesture with a complicated expression. "Lucas," he said, "what did you say yesterday at the restaurant?" The boy blinked. "Many things." "The one that made everyone go silent," Johann said. Lucas frowned, then his face brightened with memory. "I said you should marry her." Marta's cheeks flamed. "Young master, please. And why did you say that?" Johann asked calmly. "Because I liked her," Lucas said. "Because she felt safe, like mother. Not the same, but like she would stay." The room seemed to shrink around them. Johann's hand tightened on the desk. "Had you ever seen her before yesterday?" he asked. Lucas hesitated. "I am not sure," he said slowly. "Sometimes I think, when I was small, there was a voice like hers, in Mother's room, when it was dark." Marta's breath caught. Images flashed in her mind. Dim lamps, soft cries, a frail woman on a bed, a tiny bundle in her arms, a quiet song hummed to calm a restless baby, while the world outside the door held its breath. She pushed the memory away. It did not belong in this room. "It must be another voice you are remembering," she said quickly. "I have never been in the princess's chambers, young master." Johann watched her closely, as if weighing the truth of every word. For a moment, silence stretched. Then he straightened. "Regardless," he said, "what I cannot ignore is that my son has not been so calm in public in months as he was yesterday with your hand in his." "It was only for a moment," she whispered. "A moment I have not seen in a long time," he replied. "Lucas has had difficulty among strangers since his mother died. Yesterday he sat through a meal in a crowded room without a single protest. That is not nothing." Lucas squeezed her fingers. "I liked when you talked to me about the spoons," he said. Marta blinked. "The spoons? You said they were lined like little soldiers," he reminded her. "Standing straight." She let out a fragile laugh. "I was trying to think of anything to keep you from being bored, young master." "It worked," he said. Johann rubbed his temple lightly. "The situation is this," he said. "I have relatives and courtiers who want you gone, to cover their own folly. I have a son who, for reasons I do not yet understand, is unusually at ease with you. I have a household that thrives on gossip, and I have my own conscience. Somewhere between these I must choose." Marta waited. Her heart beat so loud she was sure they could hear it. "At present," Johann said slowly, "I find myself less inclined to indulge the wishes of my relatives than to attend to my son's needs." He looked at Lucas. "Do you wish Marta to stay?" "Yes," Lucas said without hesitation. "Would you like her to spend time with you during the day?" Johann continued. "To read to you, to walk with you in the garden?" "Yes," Lucas said again. "Every day." "You see?" Johann looked at Marta. "He is quite clear." She stared at them, unable to follow. "Fräulein Weiss," Johann said, "I am not dismissing you. On the contrary, I am changing your assignment." "Changing?" she echoed. "As of today," he said, "you are relieved of your duties in the lower staff. You will report instead to the nursery. Your primary responsibility will be to my son. You will be his daily companion. His nurse will remain, but you will assist. You will not be required to serve in public rooms unless I specifically request it." Marta felt the floor tilt. "His companion," she repeated. "Your Highness, I cannot. I am not trained. I am no governess, no nurse of noble children." "You are a woman with a steady nature," Johann said. "You did not faint yesterday, though you had reason. My son has chosen you. That is recommendation enough for now. But the others," she faltered, "they will think I have sought this, that I wanted rank." "Let them think what they like," he said sharply. "I will issue the order myself. No one will be confused as to whose decision it is." Tears sprang to her eyes unbidden. "Your Highness," she said, "I do not deserve such consideration." "I am not doing this for your sake alone," he said. "Do not mistake me for more generous than I am. I am doing it for my son. But I will not pretend I am unaware of the position this puts you in. You will be above some and below many. It will be uncomfortable. I am familiar with discomfort," she murmured. He almost smiled. Only almost. "Then we are agreed," he said. "You will move your things to the smaller room near the nursery. The steward will arrange it. Your wages will be adjusted. You will be given appropriate clothing for your new duties. You will answer directly to the head nurse and to me." Marta opened her mouth, closed it, then said, "Why are you doing this truly, Your Highness?" He regarded her steadily. "Because my son needs someone who makes the world quieter for him," he said. "And because yesterday I saw men of my own rank show themselves smaller than a maid. I have no wish to reward them by sending you away." Her vision blurred. She dropped into another curtsy, deeper than the first. "I will do my best," she whispered. "I expect nothing less," he said. Lucas clapped his hands suddenly. "She is staying," he said, delighted. "Marta is staying." She looked down at him. His joy seemed too large, too bright, for what she felt able to bear, but she forced a smile for his sake. The steward appeared at the door in response to a bell Johann rang. "Inform Frau Adler," Johann said, "that Fräulein Marta Weiss is transferred to the nursery as of today. She is not to be assigned kitchen or laundry duties unless I say so. Have a room prepared for her beside the nursery." The steward blinked, surprised, but bowed. "At once, Your Highness." When Marta left the study, she did so in a daze. The corridor outside felt like another world, one she did not yet know how to walk in. In the servants' hall, all conversations stopped as she entered. "Well," someone demanded, "are you dismissed?" "No," Marta said slowly. "I am being moved to the nursery." "To the nursery?" her roommate gaped. "To the little prince?" "She will be his companion," the steward announced, passing through with a folded paper. "By order of His Highness." Murmurs erupted. "Companion," one maid whispered. "Listen to that. From scrubbing floors to holding the prince's hand." "She must have bewitched him," another said in a low voice. "Oh, please," someone else replied. "She would not know how to bewitch anyone. She looks like she might faint from her own shadow." "It is always the quiet ones," a footman muttered. "They slip into rooms and hearts without a sound." "Respect yourselves," the older scullery maid snapped. "The prince gave the order himself. Do you wish to be heard questioning him?" The room hushed a little, though the looks they cast at Marta were sharp. Frau Adler appeared, her jaw set. "Come with me, Marta," she said briskly. "We must move your things. His Highness wants you near the nursery." Marta followed her up the stairs. The housekeeper walked fast, as if annoyed with every step. "I did not ask for this," Marta said softly. "People rarely ask for storms," Frau Adler replied. "They come all the same." They reached a narrow corridor near the nurseries. A small room opened off it, with a bed, a chair, and a chest. "This was used by the princess's maid once," Frau Adler said. "You will not complain of it." "I would not dare," Marta said. The idea of sleeping so near the rooms where Helena had lived and died made her tense. By mid-morning, her few possessions were moved. She stood in the doorway of the nursery with her hands folded and tried to look as if she belonged. The head nurse, Frau Keller, greeted her with a cautious nod. "I am told you are to be placed with us," Frau Keller said. "You are to assist with His Highness's son. You will follow my instructions. You will not contradict me before the child." "Of course," Marta said. "I will do exactly as you say." Frau Keller studied her face. "The boy seems taken with you," she said. "I do not pretend to understand why. But if it keeps him from fits of temper, we will make use of it." "Fits of temper," Marta repeated. "Grief," Frau Keller said simply. "Children do not have the words for it, so it comes out in other ways. You will see." The door to the inner room burst open, and Lucas appeared, hair slightly tousled. "Marta," he cried, delighted. "You are here." "Yes," she said, surprised by his enthusiasm. "I am here." "Come, come," he said, grabbing her hand. "You promised to read to me yesterday. You said another day you would tell me about the prince who lost his horse." "I did?" she asked, searching her memory. "You said there was such a story," he insisted. "You were thinking of it. Then I must find it in my thoughts," she said. "Sit, and I will try." Frau Keller watched as Marta took a picture book and settled on a low chair. Lucas sat at her feet, leaning against her knees. As she began to read, her voice soft and clear, the boy stilled. The usual restlessness that had marked his mornings seemed to drain away. "He listens to you," Frau Keller murmured, half to herself. "That is the idea," came another voice from the doorway. Johann stood there, leaning lightly on the frame. He had changed into a darker coat, but his expression was less shadowed than it had been. Frau Keller curtsied. Marta rose awkwardly, but he gestured for her to sit. "Continue," he said. "Do not interrupt his story on my account." Marta hesitated, then obeyed. She read of a prince who had lost his horse in a snowstorm and found his way home by following a small bird. The words were simple, the pictures vivid. Lucas watched the page, but seemed more interested in the sound of her voice. When the story ended, he sighed with satisfaction. "Again," he said. "Perhaps later," Johann suggested. "You must let Marta breathe." Lucas smiled at his father, then at Marta, content. Johann stepped into the room, his gaze resting briefly on Marta's face. "You are settling in." "I am trying, Your Highness," she said. "Good." He turned to Frau Keller. "If you notice any difficulty with this arrangement, inform me directly." "Yes, Your Highness," the nurse said. After he left, the nursery felt strangely altered, as if his presence had shifted the air. The days that followed took on a new shape. Marta woke in her small room near the nursery, dressed and spent most of her hours with Lucas. She walked with him in the garden paths, keeping to the quieter corners. She read him stories. She listened when he spoke of his mother in broken bits, and she was careful not to press when he fell silent. Other servants watched them from a distance, some with curiosity, others with envy or disdain. At meals in the servants' hall, the whispers did not stop. "She eats near the nursery now, did you hear? She walks in the gardens at the boy's side with no basket in her hand at all." "Her time will come," someone said darkly. "No one climbs so quickly without falling." "Unless she has the prince's favor," another added. "Then she will not fall alone, she will pull half of us down." "I do not see the prince," the older scullery maid retorted. "I see a widower with a child in need, and a girl with kind eyes. Leave them alone." For all the talk, no one dared insult Martha directly in front of Johann or Frau Keller. But in small ways the hostility showed. A basin left unfilled, a dress sent to be mended with a note that it was too fine for fingers that once scrubbed floors. Martha tried to accept these stings as the price of her new place. One afternoon, late in the week, a small party arrived at the castle. A cousin of the prince and his wife, accompanied by an older woman with keen eyes and a face lined more by observation than by age. The household stirred. Visitors meant more work, more vigilance. In the nursery, Lucas insisted on staying near Martha as preparations buzzed around them. "I do not like them," he announced, though he had not yet seen the guests. "When people come, everyone talks in low voices, and no one listens to me." "Today will be different," she said. "You and I will stay here unless your father calls us." "Will you read to me?" he asked. "Yes." She chose another book. As she read, footsteps approached in the corridor. The door opened a little, and voices drifted in. "So pale lately," a woman was saying. "Ever since Helena he is not the same." "How could he be?" another voice replied. "She was the only one who could draw him out. Now they say he hides himself behind the child, behind duties." Martha bent her head lower over the page, trying not to listen. The door opened wider. Frau Keller entered, followed by the prince's cousin and his wife. Behind them walked the older lady, her gaze taking in everything at once, the toys on the floor, the window seat, the small boy at Martha's feet. "Lucas," Johann's cousin said warmly, "do you not come to greet your uncle?" "Later," Lucas said without moving. "We are reading." The cousin laughed, a little strained. "So I see." The older woman's eyes rested on Martha. For a moment, neither spoke. Something like surprise flickered in the lady's expression. "Who is this?" she asked quietly. Frau Keller stepped forward. "This is Martha Weiss, your ladyship. She has been assigned as a companion to His Highness's son." "A companion?" The older woman narrowed her eyes. "A maid, I presume." "Yes, your ladyship," Frau Keller said. Martha rose, cheeks flushing. "Your ladyship," she murmured, curtsying. The woman studied her face, then her posture, then the way Lucas rose and pressed himself against Martha's side, clearly unwilling to put distance between them. "I know you," the lady said slowly. "I have seen you before." Martha's breath hitched. "I do not think so, your ladyship. I am of no consequence." The lady ignored the protest. She glanced at the cousin's wife, then at Frau Keller. "I remember you in another room," she said. "Not the nursery, the princess's chambers, in those last weeks, carrying the child when Helena was too weak, standing by the bed, listening at the door when the doctors came and went." Frau Keller stiffened. "Your ladyship must be mistaken," she said quickly. The older woman did not take her eyes off Martha. "No," she said softly. "I am not mistaken at all." For a long moment, no one in the nursery moved. Martha felt Lucas press closer to her side, his fingers clutching the fabric of her skirt. The older lady's gaze stayed fixed on her face, sharp and searching. "I do not think so, your ladyship," Martha said, her voice small. "I have never been of such importance." "That is precisely why I remember you," the lady replied. "The quiet ones are easier to notice. You were always by the door, never in the way, but always listening. Helena trusted you." "I remember." Frau Keller cleared her throat. "Lady Amalia, the princess had many maids. Perhaps—" "No," Lady Amalia said. "This girl held the child. I saw it more than once. Helena was so tired she could barely lift her head. She would hand the baby to this one and say, 'Sing, Martha. He sleeps for you.' Martha's knees felt weak. She wished the floor would open." Lucas looked up. "You were there," he whispered to her. "In Mother's room. I only brought water," Martha said quickly, though the lie tasted bitter. Many hands came and went. Lady Amalia tilted her head. "Are you deny it?" I do not recall, your ladyship," Martha stammered. It was long ago. I was new to the house. I was dismissed from that service very quickly." "Dismissed?" the cousin's wife repeated softly. "Oh." Frau Keller stepped in front of Martha a little, as if to shield her. "The prince will wish to hear of this," she said stiffly. "He will," Lady Amalia agreed, "and so will others." She turned and left the room without another word. The cousin and his wife hesitated, exchanged an uneasy glance, then followed. When the door shut, the silence felt heavier than their presence had. Lucas tugged at Martha's hand. "Why did you lie?" he asked quietly. "You were there. I remember your voice." Martha sank onto the chair. I did not lie entirely," she said. "I did go in and out. It was not my place to be important." "Importance has nothing to do with memory," Frau Keller said. "Lady Amalia does not forget faces easily." The nurse's eyes were not unkind, but they were worried. "Frau Keller," Martha whispered, "do you think I will be sent away?" "I think," Frau Keller said slowly, "that people will talk. And when people talk in houses like this, someone is always asked to leave, so the rest may feel innocent." Lucas's eyes filled. "You cannot go," he said. "I will not let you." "Hush," Martha murmured, stroking his hair. "Nothing has happened yet, but something had, and they all knew it." That evening, Johann received his cousin, the cousin's wife, and Lady Amalia in his study. He stood by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back, while they settled into chairs with the stiffness of people who brought unwelcome matters. "You wished to speak with me," Johann said. "About what?" "About the child," the cousin said. "And his new companion." Johann's jaw tightened. "Martha Weiss." "Yes?" Lady Amalia folded her hands. "She is not entirely new, Johann." He glanced at her. "Explain." "I remember her from Helena's chambers," Lady Amalia said. "In those last weeks she was frequently present. As a second maid, perhaps, but present. She held Lucas in her arms. She sang to him. Helena spoke to her with kindness." He stared at her, stunned. "You are certain?" "Yes. I rarely forget where I have seen a face. I do not say this with malice. But I find it remarkable that the same girl now sits in the nursery as if nothing has passed." The cousin's wife leaned forward. "Johann, you must see how this looks. A maid who was present in your wife's final days, quietly dismissed afterward, now suddenly brought back into the inner circle. People will talk. They already are." "What exactly are they saying?" Johann asked coldly. "That Helena died too soon," the cousin said reluctantly. "That perhaps, and there was confusion, mistakes, that some of the servants in those rooms were not equal to the moment." "A maid is easy to blame," Lady Amalia added. "Harder to question the physicians or God, but the whispers are there. And now you place that same maid beside the child. The connection will not go unnoticed." Johann's hands clenched. "Are you implying that Martha had any part in Helena's death?" "I am saying what others will imply," his cousin replied. "We cannot control their tongues, but we can remove reasons for gossip." Lady Amalia sighed. "Johann, I liked Helena. I like you. I have no desire to wound you, but your son is the future of this house. To surround him with people whose names are tangled with rumor is unwise." "She was a girl, carrying water," Johann said tightly. "Nothing more." "Then why was she dismissed from those rooms?" the cousin's wife asked softly. "People say she made an error, a delay, that the doctors wanted one thing and she brought another." "People say many things," Johann snapped. "None of them stood there with her." He paced a step, then turned back. "Have you asked my son whether he feels safe with her?" he demanded. "Have you watched him sleep more peacefully since she came? Or does his comfort mean nothing beside your precious gossip?" The cousin held up his hands. "Of course it matters. We only ask you to consider the wider consequences. You have duties beyond the nursery, Johann. A future, marriage to arrange, alliances. Imagine how this will look to a potential bride's family, a maid at the center of your private life, with whispers clinging to her name." "You would have me throw her out to make myself more presentable?" Johann asked. "To protect your son's position," the cousin said quietly, "and to protect Helena's memory from fresh scandal." Lady Amalia leaned forward. "Johann, if the girl is innocent, she will find work elsewhere. If she is not, do you truly wish her near the child? Think not only of sentiment, think of prudence." The words slid under his guard. Helena's memory, Lucas's safety, his own duty, all of them pulled in different directions. He exhaled slowly. "I will speak to her," he said at last. "My decision will be mine, not the court's." Lady Amalia nodded. "That is all we can ask." When they left, Johann stood alone in the study, staring at nothing. The past he had tried to lock away had come back in the shape of a maid's pale face. He sent for Marta. She entered with her usual low curtsy, hands clenched. "You asked for me, Your Highness." "Yes." His voice was calm, but she felt something coiled beneath it. "Close the door, please." She did, her heart pounding. He gestured to a chair. "Sit." "I prefer to stand, Your Highness," she said. "As you wish." He remained behind his desk, watching her. "I have had a visit from Lady Amalia," he said. "She remembers you from Helena's rooms." Marta's throat went dry. "Your Highness, do not deny it," he cut in, not harsh but firm. "I would rather hear the truth from you than from others." She gripped her skirt. "I was called to help when extra hands were needed," she said at last. "I carried linens, water. Sometimes I was asked to sit with the baby when the princess was too weak. It was nothing, Your Highness." "Nothing?" he repeated. "You held my son in your arms." "Only because there was no one else at that moment," she whispered. "I was not important." "Then why were you dismissed from that service?" he asked. "What happened?" She stared at the floor. The room seemed to shrink around her. "There was a night," she said slowly. "The doctors came and went. The princess was in pain. Someone sent me to fetch a bottle from the cabinet. I fumbled. I brought the wrong one. They shouted. I went back. When I returned, she was worse. They said I had lost time. They needed to blame someone. I was convenient." Johann's chest tightened. "Do you believe you caused her death?" "I believe," she said, voice shaking, "that if I had been faster, perhaps the doctor would have had what he needed sooner. Perhaps it would have changed nothing. Perhaps, I do not know. But after that I was told I was too clumsy for such rooms. I was sent away. I accepted it. I thought it was my punishment." He took a few steps, then stopped. "Why did you never speak of this?" he asked. "To whom should I have spoken, Your Highness?" she said. "No one would have believed me. A maid who says she did not mean harm is still a maid who made a mistake. And you think you alone were responsible for a chain of events that involved physicians and fate," he said quietly. Tears burned behind her eyes. "I think that I was there. That is enough." He looked at her for a long moment. Something eased in his face, some old tension shifting. "Helena's illness was long and cruel," he said. "Do you truly believe that a few moments with a bottle decided everything?" "I do not know what to believe," she whispered. He rubbed his forehead. "Whether you erred or not, you were a frightened girl doing as you were told. Others should have guided you. It was easier to send you away than to admit that they too were helpless." She did not answer. She did not trust her voice. "I need you to understand something," he said. "I do not see you as the cause of Helena's death." The words struck her harder than any rebuke. She looked up, startled. "You do not," she breathed. "No," he said. "I see you as a piece of a night that none of us could control. I see my own absence from those rooms as more damning than your confusion. You were there. I was not." "You were not allowed," she protested. "I did not insist enough," he replied. "Do not take all the blame. It does not belong to you." She let out a tremulous breath. Some of the weight she had carried for years shifted a fraction, though it did not fall entirely. "But others do not see it that way," he went on. "They remember only the rumor of a maid dismissed. And now they see you near my son. They will not rest until they have spoken enough to satisfy their unease." "Will you send me away, Your Highness?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. Duty and instinct warred in his gaze. "I should say no," he admitted. "I should say I will protect you, keep you where my son finds peace. That is what I want. But I do not rule alone. My decisions ripple outward. There are alliances, expectations, a future to consider. And there is Helena's name. I do not wish it dragged through more mud." "I understand," she whispered. "Do you?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I knew this place was borrowed. I did not expect to stay. If my leaving can quiet some voices, then it is just." "Just," he repeated. "There is nothing just about it." "Your Highness," she said softly, I would rather you think kindly of me from afar than resent me near." He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were resolute, but sad. "I will not cast you out with nothing," he said. "You will receive generous wages, a written reference. You may go where you choose. If you wish, I will see that you have work in another house, where no one knows your name." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you, Your Highness." "Do not thank me for this," he said. "I failed you." "You protected me when others laughed," she replied. "You gave me days with your son that I will remember all my life. That is not failure." He looked away. "You will leave quietly," he said. "No scenes, no farewells in public. I will tell Lucas something. I do not yet know what." At that, her composure nearly broke. "Please, Your Highness," she whispered, "tell him only that I had to go. Do not say I did not care." "He would never believe that," Johann said softly. "And neither do I." He rang the bell. When the steward appeared, his face lined with discomfort, Johann's voice hardened again. "Arrange for Fräulein Weiss to depart within 2 days," he said. "Her wages for the year will be paid out. She is to be given a letter of reference under my seal. This is my decision, not hers. She is not at fault. See that this is understood." The steward bowed. "Yes, Your Highness." Marta curtsied one last time. She did not trust herself to speak. She turned and walked out of the study, each step echoing. Back in her little room near the nursery, she closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Then she crossed to the small chest and opened it. Her possessions fit easily. A few dresses, a shawl, a book with loose pages, a ribbon her mother had given her. She folded them with trembling hands and laid them in the trunk. Each movement felt like a farewell. A knock came. She wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door a crack. Frau Keller stood there, her expression unhappy. "I heard," the nurse said. "The steward told me to prepare for your absence. He did not meet my eyes." "I am to leave in 2 days," Marta said. "The prince was kind. Kindness and dismissal often walk together in houses like this," Frau Keller muttered. "Do you wish to say farewell to Lucas before you go?" "No," Marta said at once, then wavered. "Yes, I do. But if I see his face, I will not be able to leave." "He will not take this well," Frau Keller warned. "He has only just found someone he trusts." "I know," Marta whispered. "That is why I must not let him see me go. It would tear him in two. Better he be angry with me from a distance than see me walk away." Frau Keller studied her. "You sound more like a mother than a maid." "I am neither," Marta said. "I am only someone who had the honor to stand beside him for a few days." Frau Keller sighed. "As you wish. I will do what I can to comfort him. But understand, some grief cannot be soothed by nurses." "I know," Marta said. "I am sorry to leave him in your hands alone." "My hands are not empty of skill," Frau Keller replied a little sharply, "but I do not have your voice." Marta smiled weakly. "You have more sense than I." "Sometimes sense is not what a child needs," the nurse said. "Sometimes he needs exactly the foolish heart that sits in your chest." She reached out and squeezed Marta's shoulder. "Finish your packing," she said. "Sleep if you can. The morning will come regardless." When she left, the room felt even smaller. Marta knelt by the trunk again, smoothing the folded shawl, then closed the lid gently. Night fell early. From her door she could hear faint music from the lower floors. The visitors were being entertained. Life went on as it always did, indifferent to who stayed and who left. She sat on the bed, hands in her lap, and let her thoughts drift back over the weeks with Lucas. His questions, his laughter, the way his hand found hers without looking. She whispered a song under her breath, the same she had sung years ago in a darkened room when another young mother had been too weak to hum. The melody wove around her like a fragile thread. Hours passed. At some point, she lay down without undressing and closed her eyes. Sleep came in uneasy fragments. In another part of the castle, Lucas heard voices. He caught his name, Marta's name. The word leave. His small body tensed. "Leave?" he demanded, sitting up in his bed. "What do you mean, leave?" The nurse shushed him, flustered. "It is late. You must sleep." "Tell me," he insisted. "Where is Marta?" "She is resting," the nurse said. "You will see her in the morning." He did not believe her. He had learned already that adults often used the morning as a curtain to hide things behind. When the nurse turned away to adjust a lamp, He slipped from the bed, silent as a shadow, and padded to the door. His fingers reached the handle. He eased it open and slipped into the corridor. The passage was dim. He knew the way to Marta's room. He had followed her there once, laughing, until she had gently sent him back. Now he moved quickly, his heart pounding. At the far end, a thin line of light showed under her door. He hurried to it and reached up, grabbing the handle with both hands. He twisted. The latch did not move. Someone, perhaps the steward, perhaps Marta herself, had turned the key from inside. He knocked, small fists thudding against the wood. "Marta," he called, "open the door. It is Lucas." Inside, Marta flinched. She had been sitting on the floor beside her trunk, back against the wall, fighting tears. At the sound of his voice, her whole body leaned toward the door. She did not move. "Marta," Lucas cried louder, pounding harder. "Open. They are saying you will leave. You cannot leave. Open, please." Her hand flew to her mouth. If she answered, she knew she would break. If she opened the door, she would never be able to close it again. "Marta!" he shouted, the knock turning to frantic beating. "Please do not go, do not go!" The corridor echoed with the sounds of his small fists and frightened sobs, while Marta knelt by her half-packed trunk, covering her mouth to smother her own cries just beyond the locked door. The pounding on the door finally brought footsteps in the corridor. A lamp flared. The nurse's voice sounded first, sharp with worry. "Lucas, what are you doing out of bed?" He didn't stop. His fists beat against the wood as if he could break it. "Marta, open, please, do not go." "Lucas," the nurse said, grabbing his shoulders, "that is enough." He twisted away. "They are lying," he cried. "They say you will leave. You cannot. You promised to read me the story about the bird again." Inside the room, Marta pressed her forehead to her knees. Every word struck like a blow. "Open," Lucas sobbed. "I will be good, I promise. I will not shout. I will not cry. Only do not go." The nurse caught him properly this time and pulled him back from the door. He fought her, small body straining, tears streaming. "Let me go," he gasped. "I must see her." "That is enough," she said, her own voice shaking now. "You will wake the house." The steward appeared at the corner, pale in the lamplight. "What is this noise?" "The child heard something," the nurse said tightly. "He thinks Marta is going. He has worked himself into a state." "She is going," the steward muttered. "But it is not my place to explain that at midnight." Lucas broke free again and hurled himself at the door one last time. "Marta!" he cried with everything in him. "Do not leave me!" The words pierced through wood and keyhole. Marta bit hard on her hand to keep from answering. The nurse scooped Lucas up in her arms despite his kicking. "I know," she murmured into his hair. "I know it hurts. But you must breathe. Breathe, child." He sagged finally, more from exhaustion than calm. His sobs turned to hiccups. The nurse carried him away, her own cheeks wet. The corridor emptied. Silence fell. Inside the room, Marta slid down until she was sitting on the floor beside her trunk, shaking. "I am sorry," she whispered to the door. "Forgive me." Morning came grey and heavy. Johann's valet found him before he finished dressing. "Your Highness," the man said carefully. "There was some disturbance in the night." "What sort of disturbance?" Johann asked, his hands still on his cufflinks. "In the corridor near the nursery," the valet said. "The prince's son. He tried to reach the maid's room. There was shouting. The nurse managed to calm him, but he did not sleep again." Johann's jaw clenched. "Why was I not informed at once?" "The nurse feared to disturb you on account of the guests," the valet said. "She told the steward. He judged it best to wait until morning." "I see," Johann said in a tone that meant he did not approve. "Send for Frau Keller and for the steward, now." Frau Keller came first, hair hastily pinned, face drawn. "Explain," Johann said. She did without embellishment. The knocking, the cries, the boy's refusal to be soothed. "He knows?" Johann asked slowly. "He knows she is leaving?" "He heard only fragments," Frau Keller said. "Children hear enough. He guessed the rest." "And this morning?" Johann asked. Frau Keller hesitated. "He is feverish," she said. "Slightly, from exhaustion, I think. His pulse is fast. He keeps asking where she is." Johann's hand tightened around the back of his chair. "Has she seen him?" he asked. "No, Your Highness," Frau Keller said. She shut herself in her room. She thinks it kinder. Kinder, he repeated. To vanish overnight? She is trying not to tear him more, Frau Keller said quietly. It is not easy either way. He stared at the window for a moment, seeing nothing. Have her come here, he said suddenly. Frau Keller shook her head. She has already packed half her trunk, she said, and your Highness has made your decision known. If you call her back only to wound her again. He was silent. You share the weight, Frau Keller added gently. But he carries it with no understanding of why. That is the worst part. The steward arrived, looking uncomfortable. You should have woken me, Johann told him. Next time, you will wake me. Yes, your Highness, the steward said quickly. Johann dismissed them both. Alone he paced the length of the room, each step heavier than the last. He saw Lucas, small fists beating on the door. He heard his own voice from days ago, telling Marta she was not to blame. And then his later words, sending her away to appease those who were. What am I doing? He muttered to himself. He went straight to the nursery. Lucas lay on the bed, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with fever. When he saw Johann, he pushed himself up. Where is she? He demanded. Where is Marta? They say she will go. That she must go. You will not let her, will you? Johann sat on the edge of the bed. The nurse hovered at a distance. Lucas, he said quietly. Sometimes people must leave even when we do not wish it. Why? Lucas cried. What did she do? Nothing, Johann said, the word harsh in his throat. She did nothing. Then why? Lucas insisted, eyes blazing. You are the prince. You can say no. Johann had no answer that would not poison the air with words like duty and scandal. Do you like her? Lucas whispered, voice suddenly small. Do you like her like you liked mother? Johann's breath caught. That is not a simple question, he said. I like her, Lucas said. When she is there, everything is less loud. When she is here, I can sleep. He pressed a fist to his chest. When she goes, it hurts here. It is like when mother went away. Do not make it happen again. Please. Johann felt something twist inside him, something that had been twisted already for years. I thought sending her away would protect you, he said slowly. Protect us. I see now, it only hurts you more. He stood abruptly. Frau Keller, he said, keep him in bed. If his fever rises, send for the doctor. Tell him I have gone out. Out, your Highness? She asked, surprised. Yes, he said. There is someone I must speak to before I lose what is left of my courage. He did not change his coat. He went straight to the courtyard and ordered a carriage with 2 horses. Where to, your Highness? The coachman asked. Johann hesitated only a second. To the main road toward the town, he said. Find every small inn along the way. We will start with the one nearest the old Weiss farm. The coachman nodded. Yes, your Highness. The carriage rattled out of the gates. Johann sat forward, fingers gripping his knees, every turn of the wheels echoing his impatience. On the outskirts of the town, the first inn stood with its crooked sign and low roof. The carriage drew up in a flurry of snow-dusted air. Johann stepped down before the coachman could offer a hand. He went straight inside. The common room was small, with a few tables and a counter. The smell of bread and smoke hung in the air. The innkeeper looked up, startled, then nearly dropped his cloth. Your Highness, he stammered, bowing. What an unexpected honor. I am looking for one of my former maids, Johann said. Marta Weiss. Has she taken a room here? The man nodded quickly. Yes, your Highness, arrived at dawn, she did. Poor thing looked worn through. She has not yet gone out again. Where is she? Johann asked. Up the stairs. Second door on the right, the innkeeper said. Shall I call her down? No, Johann replied. I will go up. The stairs creaked under his weight. At the second door on the right, he paused only a moment before knocking. Marta, he called, it is Johann von Altenburg. Inside, she startled so violently that the comb in her hand fell to the floor. She had been sitting on the edge of the narrow bed, hair loose for the first time in years. She hesitated, then rose and opened the door a crack. When she saw him, she froze, fingers still on the handle. Your Highness, she said, breathless. Why are you here? He looked at her, at the trunk in the corner, the small bed, the undone braid over her shoulder. I came, he said, to ask you a question I should have asked before I let you walk out of the castle. She swallowed. If it is about Helena, it is about you, he interrupted, and about my son, and about me. She stepped back to let him in. He closed the door behind him and stood in the cramped space with a strange awkwardness, as if he were too large for it. I thought you would be glad to be rid of me, she said with a faint, shaky smile. You have enough burdens. I have just discovered I am very bad at being rid of you, he said dryly. Sit, please, or I will wear a hole in your floor walking. She sat on the bed. He remained standing, then thought better of it and sat on the lone chair. I spoke with Lucas this morning, he began. He is feverish. He is also very angry with me. She winced. I did not intend. You did nothing but leave as I told you, he said. The hurt is mine. I am the one who said you must go. She looked down at her hands. You had reason. They spoke of me as if I had brought misfortune on your house. And you believed them, he said quietly. Her fingers twisted in her skirt. I believed I was a weight you did not need to carry, Your Highness. He leaned forward. Marta, look at me. She did, reluctantly. When Helena was ill, he said, I was kept away from her room more often than I care to remember. They said the doctors needed space. They said she needed quiet. They said seeing me in such torment would weaken her. In truth, they did not know what to do, and they hid behind rules. She listened, motionless. On one of the last days, he continued, Lady Amalia came to me after a visit. She spoke of Helena's softness, her worrying over every small thing, and she mentioned a maid, a girl from the lower staff who held the baby and sang when Helena could not. She said Helena had smiled and said, At least he will always remember a gentle voice, even if it is not mine. Marta's eyes widened. She said that? She whispered. Yes, he said. At the time I barely heard the words. I was too consumed with my own fear. Only now, when Lady Amalia spoke your name, did the memory return fully. She pressed a hand to her mouth. I never knew. She spoke to me only in small ways, thanking me for water or for lifting the child. I did not think she remembered me at all. She remembered, Johann said, and what she remembered was not clumsiness or delay. It was your voice. A tear slid down Marta's cheek. She brushed it away quickly. You do not know everything about that night, she said hoarsely. May I tell you now? Yes, he said. I want to hear it. Every part. She drew a breath. The doctors were arguing, she began. One said this medicine, another said that. They shouted over the bed as if she were not there. One sent me for a bottle. Another stopped me and said no, the other one. I was halfway to the cabinet when a third voice told me to fetch hot water instead. I did not know who to obey. She stared at the floor, seeing another room. I chose the water first, she said, then the bottle. When I brought it, the doctor snatched it and said I was slow. Helena was struggling to breathe. I wanted to disappear. I thought if I had been quicker, if I had chosen the bottle first, if... Her voice broke. They sent me out and did not call me back, she whispered. Later, a senior maid told me the physicians had said there had been confusion because of me, that I was too inexperienced, that I had wasted precious minutes. No one asked what orders I had heard. They only needed someone to point to, so they pointed at me. Johann listened, his face very still. And you accepted it, he said, without protest. What good would protest have done, she asked. The princess was gone, the doctors left. They did not wish to admit their own uncertainty. The house needed a story. I became the story, he exhaled slowly. If there was confusion, it was theirs, not yours. They were the ones trained. You were a girl being pulled 3 ways at once. A few minutes one way or another could not have stood between Helena and death. Her body was already failing. I know that now. The physicians told me later when it no longer mattered. Their words did not reach the servants' rooms, Marta murmured. Only the blame did. He rubbed his face, then let his hand drop. I cannot change those years, he said. I cannot change that you carried shame that should not have been yours, but I can refuse to let that injustice rule the rest of your life. She gave a small, bitter laugh. How, Your Highness? By sending me away with kinder words? I did that yesterday, he said. And the result was my son beating his fists bloody on your door. I am done trying to please a world that cannot be pleased. She stared at him. What are you saying? He took a breath, as if standing at the edge of a cliff of his own. I am saying, he said slowly, that I left the castle this morning not as a prince settling a servant's future, but as a man who realized he cannot bear to lose the woman who has, without knowing it, kept what remained of his family from breaking apart completely. Her mouth parted. "Your Highness—" "Let me finish," he said gently. "Since Helena died, I have existed, not lived. I have done my duty, attended councils, signed papers, and gone to bed each night in rooms that echoed. I allowed others to decide what would be best for me. Yesterday, for the first time in a long while, I made a choice I knew to be wrong the moment I spoke it. I chose fear of scandal over the peace of my own child." He looked at her steadily. "When I saw Lucas this morning," he said, "I understood something simple and terrible. If I let you go, I will be teaching my son that the world always wins over his heart. That love, comfort, trust, all of it must bow to gossip. I cannot do that to him, or to myself." Her eyes shone. "You speak of love, Your Highness," she whispered. "Do you mean—" "I mean," he said, "that somewhere between the first time you walked into that restaurant in the wrong dress and the afternoons I watched you read to my son, I began to look for you without realizing it. I found excuses to pass by the nursery. I listened for your voice in the garden. I felt less alone when you were near." He smiled faintly. "I am not a boy, Marta. I do not mistake gratitude for love. I know the difference. And what I feel for you is not gratitude alone. It is something that makes me want to risk the displeasure of every noble in Bavaria if it means not watching another carriage take you away." She shook her head almost in disbelief. "You cannot say such things," she whispered. "Not to me. I am no lady. I have no name to offer you. The court will tear us both apart." "The court is already tearing us apart," he said quietly. "It has done so from the moment it decided you were suitable to be mocked in public, but not to be cherished in private." He leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. "I left the castle this morning with a decision," he said. "If you still wish to go, I will not stop you. You will have my protection from afar. But if there is any part of you that wishes to stay, not as a servant hidden behind doors, but as my equal in the only way that matters to me, as my wife, then I ask you to hear me when I say this. Marta Weiss, will you marry me?" The room went very quiet. She stared at him, breath shallow. Her hands twisted in her skirt. "You do not mean that," she said at last, almost afraid to give the words shape. "You cannot. You speak from pity, from guilt." "No," he said firmly. "I speak from what I know. I have been pitied before. It feels nothing like this. Guilt drove me to send you away. Love brought me here to bring you back." She covered her face for a moment, fingers trembling. When she lowered her hands, tears ran freely down her cheeks. "Do you understand what you are asking?" she whispered. "If I say yes, there will be whispers that you have gone mad, that you betray Helena's memory, that you have dragged a servant into a place she does not belong. They will laugh at you as they tried to laugh at me." "Let them," he said. "I am tired of being a performance for other men's amusement. My life is not their diversion." "And if I cannot learn to walk in their world," she asked, "if I stumble, if I embarrass you at every step?" "You will stumble," he said, surprising her with his bluntness. "So will I. We will both make mistakes. But you already know how to stand up after falling. You have been doing it alone for years. I would prefer you do it beside me." She let out a shaky breath that turned into a laugh half choked with tears. "You speak as if this is simple," she said. "It is not simple," he replied. "It is just true." She looked at him, really looked, seeing the lines near his eyes, the tiredness, the hope he was barely allowing himself. "I am afraid," she admitted. "So am I," he said. "But I am more afraid of returning to that castle without you than of facing any of them with you at my side." She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was a quiet resolve there that had not been before. "If I say yes," she said softly, "I will carry with me not only my own past, but yours and Lucas's. I will do everything in my power not to fail either of you, but I cannot promise never to feel out of place." "I would be worried if you did," he said. "Even I feel out of place in my own court." A small, incredulous smile touched her mouth. "Then," she whispered, "yes." He stared. "Yes, yes," she repeated stronger. "If you truly wish to take a maid as your wife, knowing what that will cost you, then yes, Your Highness." I will marry you." He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh, almost like a sob. "Then do not call me Your Highness," he said, his voice rough. "Not when we are alone. Call me Johann." "Johann," she tried, the name unfamiliar on her tongue, intimate in a way that made her blush. He stood slowly, as if any sudden movement might shatter the moment, and held out his hand. "Come home with me," he said. "We have a child to comfort and a court to scandalize." She rose and placed her hand in his. It fit there as naturally as it had in Lucas's. "What will you tell them?" she asked. "The truth," he said simply. "That I have chosen a wife. That my son's heart knows better than their prejudice. That the maid they tried to use as a jest has become the lady of their future." "They will not like it," she said. "They will live," he replied. He picked up her trunk as if it weighed nothing. She reached out to take it. He shook his head. "You have carried enough alone," he said. "Allow me this." They went downstairs together. The innkeeper with his cloth gaped openly when he saw Marta at the prince's side, her hair hastily braided, her eyes bright from tears. "Settle her account," Johann told him. "Send the bill to the castle." Of course, Your Highness," the man stammered. Outside the air was cold but clear. The carriage waited. Johann handed the trunk up, then helped Marta climb in. He followed, closing the door behind them. As the horses started forward, the town receded. Marta sat with her hands folded in her lap, feeling every jolt of the wheels as a reminder that this was real. Johann watched her for a moment. "Are you regretting it already?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "I am wondering if I am dreaming," she said. "If I will wake on my narrow bed and find I imagined the carriage, and your words, and my own foolish courage." "If this is a dream," he said, "then we are having it together." She turned to the window. In the distance, beyond fields and bare trees, the castle rose on its hill. "There will be storms when we arrive," she said. "Let them come," he answered. "This time I will not ask you to weather them alone." The carriage rolled on toward Altenburg, carrying them back not to the life they had left, but to a new one they were about to claim. The carriage passed through the gates of Altenburg with a clatter of hooves and a rush of cold air. Marta's hands were tight on her skirt. From the window she saw the familiar courtyard, the stone walls, the servants hurrying about their work. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. Johann noticed the way she drew back a little. "Breathe," he said softly. "You are not returning as you left." She managed a faint smile. "It still feels as if I might be sent back to the laundry at any moment." "If anyone tries," he said, "they will find the prince himself in the way." The carriage stopped. A footman hurried to open the door, then froze as he saw Marta beside Johann. "Your Highness," the man stammered, "we did not expect—" "Clearly," Johann said. "See that word spreads quickly. Fräulein Weiss has returned under my protection. No one is to trouble her." "Yes, Your Highness." Johann stepped down and turned, offering his hand. Marta took it and descended, the chill of the air forgotten in the warmth of his grip. Around the courtyard, servants paused. Some gaped openly. Others whispered behind their hands. "Is that—" She came back, with him, and the trunk. "She is not just visiting." Frau Adler appeared at the door to the servants' wing, her expression caught between disapproval and worry. "Your Highness," she began, "we thought Fräulein Weiss had left—" "She had," Johann said. "I went to fetch her. She will not be leaving again without my consent. Have her room near the nursery prepared as before." Frau Adler pressed her lips together, then inclined her head. "As you wish, Your Highness." Marta felt every eye on her as she followed Johann inside. Her heart thudded so loudly she almost did not hear the small voice that called her name. "Marta!" Lucas stood at the end of the corridor, hair tousled, cheeks still pink from his fever. He wore a dressing gown, the nurse hovering uselessly behind him. He ran, bare feet slapping the floor. "Marta!" he cried again. She barely had time to set down her gloved hands before he threw himself against her, arms around her waist, face pressed into her skirt. "You came back," he said, his voice muffled. "I knew you would. I told them you would." She bent over him, her hand trembling as she smoothed his hair. "I am sorry I frightened you," she whispered. "I should not have gone. I thought it would spare you." "It did not," he said fiercely. "It hurt. Do not do it again." "I will try very hard never to leave you again without saying goodbye properly," she said. He pulled back and looked up at Johann, eyes narrowed. "Did you send her away?" he asked his father. "Yes," Johann said quietly. "I did." "Did you bring her back?" Lucas asked. "Yes," Johann said again. "Then you are forgiven," Lucas declared, as if that settled everything. "But do not do it again." Johann's mouth twitched. "I will do my best." Lucas turned back to Marta, suddenly solemn. "Will you stay?" he asked. "Not just for stories, forever." She hesitated, glancing at Johann. He nodded once. "If your father does not change his mind," she said gently, "I will stay." "He cannot," Lucas said confidently. "I told him what to do before." He listened. He turned to Johann again, chest pushed out. "Father," he said loudly enough that the nurse and Frau Adler heard, "marry her." The words echoed down the corridor, so like the ones in the restaurant that Marta felt her knees weaken. Johann smiled, but his eyes were serious. "I intend to," he said. The nurse gasped. Frau Adler went pale. "You do?" Lucas breathed. "I do," Johann said. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder and another on Marta's. "If she still wishes it, and if you will be kind enough to share her with me." Lucas' face lit as if someone had lifted a curtain. "I said it first," he announced, triumphant. "In the restaurant. Everyone heard. Now they will see I was right." "You were," Johann said quietly. He looked at Marta. "I mean to tell the court this afternoon," he said. "No more secrets. No more corridors whispering guesses." "Today?" she whispered. "Yes," he said. "If I wait, I will hear 10 new reasons to be a coward. I have had enough of my own hesitation." She nodded slowly. "Then I will stand where you ask me to stand." "At my side," he replied. "Nowhere else." He turned to the nurse. "Frau Keller, keep him resting. His fever has not completely gone." "But I feel fine," Lucas protested. "You feel better because Marta is here," Johann said. "That does not mean your body is not tired. You will rest. Later, if things go as I hope, we will all celebrate. And you will need your strength." "For what?" Lucas demanded. "For seeing adults behave like sensible people for once," Johann said. "It will be a rare event." Marta had to press a hand to her mouth to hide a laugh. Johann left them there, with Lucas still clinging to her hand, and went to prepare the announcement that would either steady his house or shake it to its foundations. By mid-afternoon, the great hall was full. Nobles from near and far, relatives, advisers, the ladies who had thought the prank so amusing, Lady Amalia with her calm eyes, the cousin and his wife. The air hummed with expectation and unease. "What is this about?" one baron muttered. "He summons us all, unannounced." "Perhaps he has finally chosen a proper bride," another said. "It is high time." "I heard the maid returned with him this morning," Lady Elise whispered to Lady Charlotte. "I saw her in the corridor." "It will be dealt with," Lady Charlotte said. "He must see reason." At the front of the hall, a small dais stood with space for the prince and a few others. Johann stepped onto it with measured steps, wearing his formal coat, the seal of his house at his breast. He looked more like a ruler than he had in years. Beside him stood Lady Amalia at his request. Her presence sent a ripple through the hall. "Thank you for coming," Johann said, his voice carrying clearly. "I know it is unusual to summon you all at such short notice." Murmurs died down. "I have called you," he continued, "because it is time I addressed openly what many of you have preferred to discuss in corners and behind closed doors." He let his gaze move slowly across the room. "A few weeks ago," he said, "some among you proposed a meeting, a blind arrangement with a lady of rank, to remind me, I believe, that I am still alive and still expected to marry." A thin ripple of embarrassed laughter passed through the hall. "Instead of the lady," Johann went on, "a maid was sent in her place, without explanation, without preparation. She was made the object of a jest unworthy of this court and unworthy of Helena's memory." The laughter died at once. "The maid's name is Marta Weiss," Johann said. "She has served in this household for 3 years. She was not asked whether she wished to be part of your amusement. She was told to obey. She walked into that restaurant unaware that she was meant to be the punchline of your cleverness." Faces shifted. Some flushed. Eyes darted away. "I will not name all of you who took part," Johann said. "You know who you are. So do I. What matters more is what happened next." He glanced toward the side door. "Lucas," he called, voice softening but still clear. "Would you come here, please?" A collective intake of breath moved through the hall. The small door opened and Lucas appeared, hand in Martha's. Behind them walked Frau Keller. Martha wore a dress slightly finer than her usual plain ones, but still modest, her hair neatly arranged. She looked as if she wished the floor would open, yet she held her head steady. Murmurs swelled. Martha felt them on her skin like a rough breeze. "Come," Johann said, holding out his hand. They crossed the hall. Lucas walked without hesitation. Martha followed, every step an act of will. At the foot of the dais, Lucas released her hand, climbed the 2 steps and took his father's. "Martha," Johann said, "join us." She hesitated, then mounted the steps slowly. Standing there under so many eyes, she felt as if her heart were beating in her throat. Johann turned back to the hall. "In that restaurant," he said, "my son walked up to this maid, took her hand, and, in front of the entire room, said to me, 'Father, marry her.' Many of you have repeated the story with laughter. Some have repeated it with horror. Very few have asked why a child would say such a thing." Lady Charlotte shifted uncomfortably. Lady Elise looked at her feet. The cousins stared at Lucas with a tight jaw. "I asked," Johann said. "I asked my son. I listened. And then I watched. I watched how he slept when she sat near him, how he played, how he walked into a crowded room without fear for the first time since Helena died. I watched, and I began to wonder if his heart was seeing something my reason had refused to consider." He looked at Martha briefly. Her cheeks were flushed, but her gaze met his. "There is another matter you have discussed behind my back," Johann continued. "Martha's presence in Helena's chambers during her last weeks. Lady Amalia brought this to me. I thank her for speaking openly, instead of adding her voice to the whispering." Lady Amalia inclined her head, unflustered. "Yes," Johann said. Martha served briefly in those rooms. She carried water. She held Lucas when Helena no longer had the strength to do so. She sang to him, and on a night when confusion reigned and physicians contradicted one another, she became the convenient scapegoat for their uncertainty. She was dismissed and a story was born, that a maid's clumsiness had stolen time from Helena's hour. He let the words hang there. "That story," he said, "is false." Gasps, quickly smothered. The physicians themselves told me later and in private that there was nothing anyone could have done to alter Helena's end by minutes. Her illness had reached its final course. They were too proud to say so in public then. They let the house seek a simpler explanation and knew a servant's name would bear it more easily than theirs. He looked at Lady Amalia. "You told me, years ago," he said to her, "of a remark Helena made. Will you repeat it now?" Lady Amalia stepped forward. "In one of my last visits," she said, her voice clear, "Helena was very weak. She watched this girl hold Lucas and sing. Afterward she said to me, 'If I cannot be the one to soothe him, at least he will remember a gentle voice, even if it is not mine.' She did not speak of clumsiness. She spoke of gratitude." A heavy silence settled. Johann nodded slowly. "You have used Helena's name to justify your suspicion of this woman," he said. "You have implied that keeping Martha near my son is an insult to his mother's memory. I tell you now as plainly as I can, it is not. It is, in a strange way, an answer to Helena's own hope, that her child would know gentleness, even if it came from another." Martha's eyes filled. She blinked rapidly, refusing to let tears fall in front of so many. "As for my duties," Johann went on, "I know them. I know I am expected to marry for alliance, for rank, for politics. I know there are families who would gladly offer daughters if I sent the word. I also know that I am a father before I am a chess piece on anyone's board." He placed his hand lightly on Lucas's shoulder. "This child," he said, "has already lost one parent. I will not teach him that the second chooses ambition over his heart. I will not show him that the woman who makes his world bearable can be discarded to keep others comfortable." He drew breath. "And so," he said, "I have made my decision. It will not please all of you. That is not my aim. I intend to marry, not in some distant time, but soon. I intend to marry the woman my son asked me to consider, before I had the courage to consider her myself." His hand sought Martha's. He held it, firm and public. "I intend to marry Martha Weiss," he said. The hall seemed to tilt. A hiss of indrawn breath, a few half-formed exclamations, quickly bitten back. Someone dropped a fan. Someone else clutched a rosary. "This is madness," a baron near the front muttered too loudly. "A maid, as princess." Johann's eyes snapped to him. "Baron," he said calmly, "when you and your friends sent this maid to the restaurant in another woman's place, did you consider her rank then? Did you worry about sullying noble dignity when you made her the victim of your amusement?" The baron flushed scarlet. "Your Highness, it was a jest." "At my son's expense," Johann cut in. "At mine. At hers. Your jest has led us here. You may yet be grateful for its outcome." Another noble tried a different approach. "Your Highness," he said with forced respect, "no one questions your right to marry whom you choose. But there are practical concerns. How will other courts see this? How will they receive a princess with no lineage? What of alliances?" Johann held his gaze. "Other courts may see what they like," he said. "Those who value only bloodlines and not character are free to keep their distance. As for alliances, I would rather ally myself with those who respect the woman I love than with those who sneer at her." Lady Charlotte lifted her chin. "And Helena?" she asked softly. "Would you have her place filled by a servant?" Martha flinched. Johann's jaw tightened. "Helena's place in my life is not a chair to be filled," he said. "It is a history, a love, a grief that will always be part of me. Marrying again does not erase her. It honors what she wanted most, that her son be safe and cherished. If she could speak, I believe she would say, 'Choose the woman who truly loves him, not the one who flatters your throne.'" Lady Amalia nodded once. "I believe she would," she said quietly. Martha found her voice. "If I may speak, Your Highness," she whispered. Johann glanced at her, surprised but encouraging. "You may." She turned slowly, facing the hall, though her knees trembled. "I know what I am," she said. "I know what I am not. I was born on a farm. My hands are more used to washing stone than wearing jewels. I do not know the dances of your world. I do not know how to trade wit over coffee cups. I have no illusions that I will step into this life without stumbling." She drew breath. "But I also know this," she went on. "I did not ask for any of this. I did not seek to climb. I was content to be a shadow in the corridors. The first time I sat at a table with His Highness, I wanted nothing more than to disappear. When his son took my hand, it was not because I had reached for him. It was because he reached for me." She looked down at Lucas for a moment. He watched her with fierce trust. "I love this child," she said simply, "not because he is a prince, but because he is a boy who wakes from bad dreams and needs someone to sit beside his bed. Because he asks questions and listens to stories and laughs when I get them wrong. If I become his father's wife, I will not forget that my first duty toward him is to be kind, to be honest, to stay." Her voice softened. "You may never accept me as one of you," she said. "I cannot force your hearts, but you will have to accept that I will be at his side. If not for my sake, then for his." The hall was very quiet. Lucas tugged at Johann's sleeve. "May I say something?" he whispered. Johann smiled faintly. "You have already said plenty in these last weeks, but go on." Lucas stepped forward, small but determined. "When Mother died," he said, in a voice that carried farther than one would expect, "everyone said it would get better. It did not. Not really. It was loud in my head all the time, even when no one spoke." He swallowed. "When Martha came, it got quieter," he said. "Not gone, but quieter. When she sings, it feels like when the snow falls and everything sounds softer." A few people blinked quickly. Others looked away. "You say she is only a maid," Lucas continued. "But when I am afraid, I do not care what she is called. I care that she sits and holds my hand. If you make her go away again, I will still love her. I will still remember. You cannot change that, not even if you are very important." He looked around, small chin lifted. "And if you say my father must not marry her because of you," he finished, "then you are saying my heart matters less than your talk. I think Mother would not like that." Silence. Deep, heavy, undeniable. The cousin cleared his throat, clearly moved, despite himself. "Johann," he said, "I still worry about politics. I will not pretend otherwise, but I cannot stand here and insist on those worries in the face of what your son has just said. I will not be the man who looks a child in the eye and tells him that his comfort is less important than my pride." He stepped forward and bowed his head slightly toward Marta. "If this is your choice," he said, "then I will do what I can to support it, even if I stumble at first." His wife followed his lead. "It will not be easy," she said, "for any of us. But I would rather face difficulty alongside a man who chooses his family than ease beside one who does not." One by one, others spoke or remained silent. Some bowed more stiffly than others. Some offered polite words that rang thin. Yet the tide had turned. No one dared openly challenge the prince again. Lady Charlotte and Lady Elise hung back, consumed by their own discomfort. Johann looked at them. "You owe someone an apology," he said. They knew he did not mean himself. They approached Marta slowly. "Fräulein, Princess, Lady Elise stammered, already confused. "You may call me Marta for now," Marta said quietly. "I am not yet anything else." Lady Charlotte swallowed. "We meant no harm," she began. "That is not true," Marta said, but her tone was gentle. "You meant to laugh. You meant to feel clever. You did not think about the cost." Lady Charlotte's shoulders sagged. "You are right," she admitted. "We did not think." "I am sorry." "So am I," Lady Elise whispered. "We were cruel. You may never trust us." "I would not in your place." "I accept your apology," Marta said after a moment. "Trust will take time. Let us begin with honesty." They nodded, relieved and chastened. Johann lifted his hand for silence one last time. "You have heard me," he said. "You have heard my son. You have heard the truth about the past. I do not ask for universal approval. I ask for respectful acceptance. I will marry Marta Weiss. Those who cannot bear to witness it may absent themselves from the ceremony. Those who remain will do so knowing exactly whom and what they are blessing." He paused. "If anyone wishes to withdraw their service from my house because of this union," he added, "they may do so. I prefer a smaller court of honest hearts to a large one of grudging faces." No one spoke. "Very well," Johann said, with a finality that settled over the room like a closing book. "We will move forward." The wedding came sooner than many expected. It was not the grand affair neighboring courts might have imagined. There were no foreign princes, no long processions. Johann insisted on simplicity. He said he had no desire to decorate a love he already valued. The chapel in the castle was filled, however. Nobles stood in rows, some stiff, some genuinely moved. Servants lined the back, eyes wide. Outside, villagers gathered near the gates, whispering stories that grew softer with each retelling. In a small room near the chapel, Marta stood before a narrow mirror. Her dress was ivory, plain in cut but carefully sewn, with a single ribbon at the waist. Her hands shook as she smoothed the skirt. Frau Keller pinned a small sprig of white flowers at her shoulder. "You look like yourself," the nurse said. "That is a blessing." "I feel like an imposter," Marta confessed. "Good," Frau Keller said briskly. "It will keep you humble. But remember this. You did not push your way here. Life pulled you. Now stand where it has placed you." Lady Amalia entered carrying a small folded handkerchief. "May I speak with the bride?" she asked. Frau Keller bobbed a curtsy and slipped out. Lady Amalia came closer and took Marta's hands. "I have something for you," she said. "It is not much, but I think Helena would have wanted you to have it." She unfolded the handkerchief. Inside lay a simple silver cross on a thin chain. "She wore this in her youth," Lady Amalia said. "Later it stayed in a drawer. She said she no longer needed reminders to be brave. She gave it to me once when I was afraid. I think it is my turn to give it away." Marta hesitated. "I cannot take your keepsake," she whispered. "You are not taking it," Lady Amalia said. "You are accepting it. For Lucas, for Johann, for her. Let it remind you that you walk into this marriage not as a usurper, but as another woman called to love the same child." Her voice softened. "And if heaven is kinder than we suppose," she added, "perhaps Helena will look down and say at last, 'Someone stayed.'" Tears filled Marta's eyes. "Do you truly think she would approve?" she asked. "I think she loved her son more than she loved rules," Lady Amalia said. "On that ground you stand together." She fastened the chain around Marta's neck. "There," she said. "Now go. He is waiting." In the chapel, Johann stood at the front beside the pastor, his hands clasped. He wore no crown, only a simple dark coat. His eyes were on the door. Lucas stood beside him, smaller but radiantly proud in his little suit. He kept straightening his collar. "Stop fussing," Johann murmured. "I want to look proper," Lucas said. "I told her to marry you. I should look like someone who knows what he is doing." Johann smiled. "You have done better than half the advisors in this room," he said. The music began, simple and clear. The door opened. Marta stepped in, alone. No father on her arm. Her own parents had chosen to remain in the village, half overwhelmed, half terrified by the idea of the castle. She did not blame them. She walked with small, careful steps, her gaze fixed on Johann. He felt his breath catch. He had seen her in work dresses, in plain gowns, in a tired shawl. This was still Marta, but there was a quiet radiance about her now, born not of the dress, but of the knowledge that she was chosen, not tolerated. When she reached them, he took her hand. It was cool, slightly damp. He held it firmly. "You came," he whispered. "You asked," she replied. The pastor spoke words of promise. Duty, fidelity, sickness and health, richer and poorer. Marta listened, but what she heard most clearly was the steadiness of Johann's voice as he repeated them, looking at her as if no one else existed. When it was her turn, her voice trembled at first. Halfway through, it steadied. "I promise," she said, "to be your companion in joy and in sorrow, to speak the truth even when it is hard, to stand beside you, even when the court does not, to love your son as if he were my own, without trying to make him forget who he has lost." Johann's eyes glistened. He closed them briefly, then opened them again. The pastor smiled. "By the vows you have spoken," he said, "in the presence of God and this company, I pronounce you husband and wife." He paused, looking at Johann. "You may greet your bride," he said. Johann lifted Marta's hand and kissed it with deliberate tenderness. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a murmur through the room, a recognition that this was no political contract. This was a choice. Lucas bounced on his heels. "Now?" he whispered loudly. "Now," Johann said. Lucas flung his arms around both of them, half laughing, half crying. "I did it," he announced. "I said it, and it happened." "You did," Johann said, hugging him close with one arm and Marta with the other. "You are not going away again," Lucas told Marta, clinging to her skirt. "Not ever." "Not if I can help it," she said. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the hall. Food, music, subdued laughter. Some nobles kept their distance, others approached with cautious warmth. The baron who had spoken rudely earlier came to Johann and bowed. "Your Highness," he said, "I was wrong. About many things. I ask your forgiveness." "Live better," Johann replied. "That will be forgiveness enough." He and Marta did not dance much. They spent more time talking quietly to those who truly wished them well. Lady Amalia spoke long with Marta's parents, who had finally gathered enough courage to come for a short while, and now stood looking bewildered and proud. At the edge of the room, the servants watched. The older scullery maid wiped her eyes with her apron. "Look at her," she said. "Still the same girl who scrubbed floors." "Not quite the same," her neighbor replied. "No," the older woman said, "but that is good. Souls are meant to grow." Later, when the last of the formalities had faded and the guests had begun to disperse, Johann and Marta slipped away to the quiet of the winter garden. The glass panes held back the cold, enough for them to sit on a stone bench among dormant plants. For the first time that day, they were alone. "Are you tired?" Johann asked. "Exhausted," she said, smiling, "and strangely light." "Do you regret it?" he teased. "Ask me again after your relatives visit for a month," she said. He laughed. "I will say this," she added. "It is easier to stand before your court than it was to stand before your study door the first time. We survived both," he said. "We can survive the rest." She grew quiet, looking at him. "I never thought," she said slowly, "that my life would lead here. There were days I believed it would end in a kitchen, and I would be buried with no one to remember my name." He took her hand. "Lucas would have," he said. "He would have remembered a voice. Now he will remember the woman who stayed." "And you?" she asked softly. "What will you remember?" He thought for a moment. "The day a frightened maid walked into a restaurant and accidentally showed me how small men of my rank can be," he said. "And the way she kept her back straight even when she wanted to run. I will remember the son who saw her more clearly than I did, and I will remember that I nearly lost both of you to my own fear. You did not, she said. You turned back. He looked at her, eyes earnest. I love you, he said simply. Not as a prince loves a symbol, as a man loves the woman who has become the center of his days. Her breath hitched. I love you, she replied. Not because you are a prince, because you are a man who came to a small inn to ask a maid to help him begin again. He leaned a little closer, then stopped, giving her space to choose. She closed the distance, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. They sat like that for a while, in a silence that felt like the one Lucas had described, like snow softening the edges of the world. Beyond the glass, flakes had begun to fall, drifting gently over the sleeping garden. Later, when people spoke of this story, they would tell it in many ways. Some would say it began with a cruel prank. Others would say it began years earlier in a sick room, when a young maid sang to a tired child, while a princess listened with grateful eyes. But in the quiet places where truth lingers, it would be simpler. They would say that once, in a kingdom where titles were everything, a 5-year-old boy held up his small hand and pointed to a woman no one thought important and said, "Father, marry her." And against all expectations, against all the noise of the world, the father listened. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.